Hello and welcome to this edition of the GBS X Series. Today you will be learning about how to mobilize your XPage applications with the IBM Update Pack. You'll be hearing from our hosts, Paul Calhoun, the Director of Worldwide Enablement here at GBS, and Paul Della-Nebba and Howard Greenberg from TLCC. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to Howard, who will get you guys started with the agenda. Howard?
Let me go through the agenda today, and we're going to start off with, after I say a few initial words, with Paul Calhoun. And Paul's going to talk about the mobile development landscape. What are our options when we're developing for mobile devices? And then the rest of the webinar, we're going to focus in on just one area of mobile development, and that is using XPages and the new mobile controls that are available in the IBM Upgrade Pack 1 to create our mobile web applications. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what are your testing options. And then Paul Della-Nebba is going to talk about the mobile controls, or some of them. And we'll get into how to convert a notes application that is a traditional notes application with views and documents into use for mobile devices. And then we're going to turn things back to me, and I'm going to just spend a few minutes talking about some more advanced mobile XPages techniques and the skills you'll need to build mobile XPages. So that's our agenda today. We're going to action-packed hour and a half. Real quick, while I'm talking here, I'll take a poll and just ask about what your mobile or your XPages experiences are, not necessarily mobile, but just what you've done in XPages so far. The webinar is geared for people who have some XPages experience. You don't have to be an expert. And it also is geared for folks who are already Notes and Domino developers. Let's kind of level set that. We'll give that another minute or so, or 30 seconds for everyone to finish voting. Okay, so it's looking like, I'll share the results here, that about half of you have done some XPages. 30% of you have done a little more than just a little. You say you created an XPages app, and 10% have said they've done a lot, and then there are 12% of you who haven't jumped into XPages yet. And hopefully this webinar will get you a little more excited about XPages and you'll get going. Okay, so let's move on. Just a brief commercial for TLCC. We develop training for both technical professionals and users. Our courses are notes-based. You take the courses in your Notes client, and then you can use Domino Designer or Domino Administrator to do the activities and demonstrations. We also have an instructor-led option for the courses where you can take the courses online using something similar to this GoToWebinar, but in a much smaller setting and much more one-on-one type training. And then we also do private on-site where we can come to you. And we also have user courses as well for Notes quicker and same time. We do have 4 XPages courses, starting off with a JavaScript course that focuses in on learning JavaScript for XPages. And then we have 2 core XPages courses. And we have our new mobile XPages courses. All in all, that's 14 days of XPages training, which is far greater than any other training provider has out there. Let me take another poll while I'm talking about Lotusphere and just see how many people on the webinar are going. So TLCC will be there. It's our, I think, 15th year exhibiting, and we'll be in booth 319. And when I close the poll, you'll see an image of the t-shirt we're giving out. Stop by on Monday or Tuesday, and then wear the shirt on Wednesday, and that allows you to enter our drawing to win an iPad. Paul Della-Nebba and myself from TLCC are also doing an XPages Jumpstart, nice and early, Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. Hopefully, if you're just starting out in XPages, you'll feel like you want to wake up early and start your Lotusphere week by coming to sit in on our session. GBS is also going to be at Lotusphere. I don't think you're going to be able to miss them. They have a number of booths, and let me share the results of the poll. So a lot of you are going to Lotusphere. That's great. And so GBS, Paul Calhoun is doing 2 sessions at Lotusphere. He's doing an intro to Java for dominant developers on Sunday. That's a jumpstart. So it's a 2-hour session. And then he's doing a session on 10 critical steps for migrating Notes apps on Wednesday. We are also doing with GBS at their suite a very small group setting. We're doing basically this webinar, but live in person on Monday. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, we have an Intro to XPages webinar, or not webinar, but live session. And again, that's in the GBS suite. You have to register at that URL that we're showing. And I didn't share the results of who's going to Lotusphere, but 20% of you are planning on going. So just wanted to pass that on. So hopefully we'll all get to meet in person. So this webinar is based on our new course. It's will take you, it's self-paced, but it will take you about 2.5 days to go through. And we do have a special deal for the webinar attendees of $3.99. So right now at our website, this course is normally $5.99, and we have a Lotusphere sale priced of $4.99. So you can save an additional $100. But you have to order by Friday of next week, the 13th. And you've got to go to that URL below to start your order, and that's tlcc.com/mobile-webinar. You also will get 20% off any of our other courses, or 5% on anything on sale. Okay, so now I'm going to turn things over to Paul Calhoun to start the his presentation. Okay, Paul, you should have control now.
Cool. Well, officially good morning and welcome everyone to our webinar this morning. As Howard said, I'm going to kind of pick up and jump right into talking about kind of the mobile development landscape, so that we can kind of position the tools and availability that are available inside of the Domino designer space. So we'll talk about the native mobile applications, get in and visit about mobile web apps, hybrid apps, devices, browsers, and the tooling that's been available from OpenNTF, and then the official tooling that's now available in the Update Pack. So starting off, there's not so much confusion as just kind of misunderstanding. Is we've all got the smartphones and the devices that are capable of rendering content. And what is the difference between a native app versus a browser-based app? So starting off with native applications. With native mobile applications, those are actually applications that are developed much like an application would be developed for your computer. In that device, whether it's an iPhone or an Android or a BlackBerry, it has a specific API and software development kit. And you actually develop applications that are executed inside the memory space of that particular mobile device. The data can be stored locally, or it can also be accessed over the web via RPC or web services. It's typically deployed from some type of retail store, if you will, for iPhones. For those of you who have iPhones, or the Android devices, you know that there's the application store. Some applications are available for free. Some applications are available for some minimal charge. Again, those are all developed with the device-specific API and software development kit. So you have to have an environment that's specific to developing for that particular platform. Obviously, with the iPhone platforms, those are the Xcode tools that are running inside of some type of OS X or Macintosh environment. Native mobile applications have the ability to work offline with data on the device, again, or they can also reach out to data that's stored on a corporate server, web server via RPC or web services. Typically, those also have the ability to interact with the device's peripherals. Primarily, those are going to be the camera and the other applications that are there on the device itself. Again, if the device has that capability. We contrast that with mobile web applications. The biggest difference between these two things is what I call the barrier to entry. With the native applications, you typically have to go through the hardware vendor's particular process for deploying those applications. Most specifically, with iOS for the iPhones and iPads, you actually have to submit your application to Apple, and it has to go through a vetting process. And it's a pretty stringent process, and it can be very time-consuming to get your applications out there into the mobile workspace market. If you compare that to a mobile web application, then what you're going to find is that that's simply a URL. So users are going to access your application via the device's browser. Data can be stored typically in the the web server that they're connecting to, but with the advent of the HTML5 and the capability of using small SQL, you can actually store data on the device as well. So even if it is a quote-unquote web application, if you have the capability to store some stuff locally, then you can also serve up some of that data from the local device itself once it's actually been initialized. Typically, though, most of those applications do require connectivity. And that, again, is one of the contrasting differences between mobile web apps versus native applications. Most native applications are going to be able to work offline, where mobile web applications are going to be required to have some type of connectivity either through the device or through a Wi-Fi hotspot. Okay? The last bullet there is pretty important because it talks about the fact that the web apps are typically not going to be device dependent. So a lot of times when you're developing the mobile web applications, you can target multiple platforms. So it can be for what we call a WebKit-based application that's available to multiple mobile devices. And there's also a hybrid development environment that's out there. For example, there are tooling that's become available, and it's really kind of matured in the past 18 to 12 to 18 months. A couple that we list here, PhoneGap and Titanium. What these allow you to do, for example, instead of developing your iOS native application in Objective-C, which is the language that we write iPhone applications in, you can use PhoneGap or Titanium and actually develop it in kind of a GUI WYSIWYG environment and do all your code logic, for example, in JavaScript. And then the PhoneGap Titanium applications will then generate the Objective-C code that's needed in order for it to be a native application. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds there. And again, cross-platform capability framework, access to device hardware features, etc. Again, your target for, regardless of the type of application, then these are going to be your mobile web browsers that are on your iOS devices, your BlackBerry devices, and your Android devices. And typically, these are going to be WebKit-based mobile devices. And again, these are going to be your target platforms for rolling out these applications. Now, where Domino comes into play here is prior to 8.5.3, we had the OpenNTF Extension Library. And they started introducing some of the tools for mobile development in that space. And the nice thing about that is that we really got to preview those. Developers got to beat up on them a little and provide feedback to the IBM developers. And what came out of that process of not just the mobile tools, but the entire extension library is then the official 8.5.3 upgrade pack. What this is the official extension library code that's fully supported by IBM. Now, in order to run the upgrade pack, you do have to have a Domino Designer 8.5.3 as well as a Domino 8.5.3 test server. The naming references, just because it's been referred to as different things, it's officially the Upgrade Pack or Upgrade Pack 1. So when you're looking for it out there and you see things referencing, that's really what it's talking about. Now again, the Upgrade Pack 1 is the official IBM release of the OpenNTF Extension Library. Upgrade Pack 1 is available through the standard IBM channels, so you can get that available through your standard Passport Advantage or Partner World. Again, fully supported. It's not all of the OpenNTF tools. It is a subset of the extension library features that are out there. You cannot run both of these tools simultaneously. If you have the extension library from OpenNTF installed, you do want to kind of uninstall that when you go to install the Upgrade Pack. So kind of just a comparison right there between the two. For example, the official Upgrade Pack contains all of the really cool mobile stuff and a lot of the standard controls that were there. One of the things it doesn't contain, though, is the relational tools. Those are still kind of considered to be beta, if you will, and they're still available via OpenNTF. Developers can still get them and play with them and work with them, but they're not the official, again, supported tooling that's available via the Upgrade Pack. Once you've installed the Upgrade Pack, again, the design requirements there are the 853 designer with the Upgrade Pack 1 installed, and then for the 853 server with the Upgrade Pack installed. So there's actually two different installation options. The designer options include a lot of not just the tooling, but they've also, because they're OSGI plugins, they've actually contributed a lot of UI design, to the designer experience. So they're not just necessarily tools in your palette, but they are also things that you can give you a visual indication of when you're putting them into the design pane. And then obviously for the runtime, you need to have that server installed. You'll notice in the screenshot there that there are 3 folders when you download and unpack these. So the client is just the client XPink runtime. The designer is the client XPink runtime with the designer tools, and then the Domino server is the Domino runtime. As a designer, the only thing you need to concern yourself with is, again, the designer and the Domino runtime for testing. Once you've installed this into your design environment, what you'll see is that you've now got additional controls in your palette over on the right-hand side. One of the great features new to 853 is the ability to go in and control your palette to determine which things that you see during a particular design task. So what you've seen on the screen here is we've modified our palette to include an XPages mobile palette experience, which allows us to only focus on, again, the core controls, container controls, and then the mobile controls, and then the additional things from the extension library. So when we are developing our mobile applications, then those are the only tools that we see, and the palette on the right-hand side isn't cluttered up, with any additional things that would just get in the way. You'll find that the mobile design experience, if you've been doing XPage development, may be a little bit different than what you're used to if you haven't been developing XPages for quite a while. In the XPages design environment, you have the Design tab as well as the Source tab. The Design tab is the kind of pseudo WYSIWYG environment where you can drag controls onto the design pane, and then you can go in and configure those through the Properties tab on the bottom. Because there's no real browser or standard web browser graphical user interface interpretation of these controls, what we have found, and what most people have found, is that it's significantly easier to develop the mobile applications from the source view instead of the design view. So you can get in and you can see the kind of the hierarchical layout of the tools and the controls that you're adding to the design. And Paul Della-Nebba is going to get into that when he starts here in just a little bit. But you're going to find that we do most of our work again, in the source pane using a combination of the outline view and the properties tab there. Now, testing mobile applications is always going to be a little bit challenging if you've done standard Domino or XPage development, because it's not just clicking a button and say preview this. Obviously, if you have a server that's available and that server is serving up, and it's accessible over HTTP, obviously then you can go in and you can test from that server. But you can also do some testing, locally, if you will, using a couple of different options here. So you can use the actual mobile devices, obviously, if you can point to the server that's serving up the HTTP. There's also several mobile device simulators and emulators that are available. Some of those come, specifically with the API tooling. For example, there's one built into the Xcode interface for iOS. You can use desktop browsers that support WebKit for what we call spoofing. And that's going to be your Firefox and your Chromes that allow you to go in and actually do that spoofing, and that's what's going to happen in a lot of the test environments that you see. And then there's also a lot of mobile simulators that are out there. They've also included one in the OpenNTF mobile tools, and then that's also included in the upgrade pack as well. So you're going to see that. So just kind of walking through each of these. If you have a Domino server that, again, is accessible, from Wi-Fi or even over the internet, then you can simply just serve up those pages to the actual mobile devices themselves. And that really is kind of the best scenario, if you will, because you're actually going to see what the experience on the device is itself. But that may not be, easy or applicable to just your standard development where you're going in, writing code test, write code test. To do that, again, you've got mobile device simulators and emulators that are out on the market. You can get those for different specific devices. We also have the desktop browsers. A lot of times when I'm doing mobile development, I'll just throw that up into, again, Firefox or Chrome. And see, okay, well, I can see what this would look like if I just, say the platform is equal to iPhone. And you can pass that in, you see in the slide there, as a URL parameter. Okay. Last but not least, and again, what we heavily utilize in the Mobile XPages course is the mobile simulator that's built into the upgrade pack. So this is a web page, basically, an XPage, that allows us to go in and see what it would look like in an iPhone, Android, or BlackBerry interface. And again, it's a nice way for you to be able to do rapid application development and see what that experience would look like similarly to the actual device before you actually throw it out on the actual device. So that's kind of the state of the art of your options that are out there for mobile development. And now we're really going to get in and focus on doing this mobile development with the tools that are available in the upgrade pack. And to do that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Della-Nebba, or Paul Della-Nebba is already taking over.
Good morning, afternoon, evening for everyone here. On my screen, we see Paul Calhoun. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm the other Paul, so I'm going to be taking you through the nuts and bolts of developing mobile applications. And just to check with the other presenters, am I presenting my screen and my voice properly? Any feedback on that? I'm going to assume I am, unless someone jumps in. Okay, so the first... Sorry, I missed that. Okay.
I said you look and sound good to me.
All right, thanks, Paul. Okay, so this first slide here is showing you what you need to enable in a application, in a Notes application, to develop web applications. And there are two settings. One is in the application properties, you need to enable the upgrade pack / extension library. Also, in the XSP properties, you want to add this mobile theme. So in your application properties, you can specify one or another theme for all of your XPages, in this case the One UI version 2.1 theme. for any XPage that is prefixed in their name with mobile, in this case, and you can choose whatever prefix you want, they will use the mobile themes instead. So you certainly need to do that for the applications where you're going to enable mobile XPage development. Now this screen is showing us the controls that are available. So when you install the upgrade pack in Designer, you have 8 specific mobile controls, and there are other controls available in the extension library that you'll probably use in your XPage development as well. So this next series of slides is just to introduce those 8 controls and what they're used for. So your single page application control is your container control for your entire mobile application. You'll add that inside of your XPage, and that's what we see here. We see the XP view, the root tag for your XPage, and right within that we have a single page application control, and then within that you'll add as many mobile pages as you need for that particular application. In this application shown in this slide, we have a simple read-only application where we're showing a domino view on one mobile page called View Page and a domino document on another mobile page called Document Page. Now, you can also add mobile heading controls, and they are added to the top of your mobile pages. And another type of control is your static line item control. And what I'm showing here in the titles is the actual tag, okay, and we can see the source for those as well. So static line item control is typically a navigation control to open another mobile page. Another control available to you is the rounded list control, and that's typically used to contain, to provide a rounded rectangular list to contain, in the case of a domino application, domino document data. Another set of controls that are available to you are the tab bar and tab bar button controls, and it's pretty obvious how you would use those and where you typically place them in your mobile page. Now, not so obvious, at least from a domino application perspective, is the domino or the mobile switch control. So this is a familiar control for anyone with an iPhone or another smartphone device. And it allows the user to, switch on or switch off phone settings, typically used in your actual phone settings, airplane modes, and so on. In a domino application, can be used. There is an event that you can code to, the onState changed event, and that supports both client-side and server-side JavaScript. So one possible application is to just have your mobile user flip a switch, and by doing so, that's going to trigger off some sort of, let's say, a more complex back-end process running on your Domino server, some sort of maybe a workflow process. Okay, we're going to switch into Designer, and we're going to create this simple mobile application, our Hello Mobile World application. So we're going to create an XPage, and we're going to add to that a single page application control, and then a mobile page to that to present Hello World. So let me switch into Designer, and just before I do that, I'm going to be creating this XPage in this Workbench application. But I need to make sure that this application is properly set up to support mobile page development. So let me check that out. And in the application properties on the Advanced tab, I do see that the Upgrade Pack extension libraries have been enabled for this application. And while I'm at it, let me go to the XPages tab, and I can see that the theme, or the application theme for all of the XPages, will be One UI version 2.1 in this particular Workbench application. Now, the other property that needs to be set, you can access through the Package Explorer in the XSP properties file. And if I go to the source, line 7 is the line that you want to add to your XSP properties file. So notice line 6. The default theme for your XPages is One UI version 2.1 as it was specified in the application properties. For any XPage that is prefixed with, in this case, mobile, and you can call it whatever you want, M underscore, well, it has to be a valid character for an XPage name. But any XPage prefixed with this case, mobile, will use instead of One UI version 2, the mobile themes that come with the upgrade pack. Okay, so I'm going to create that Hello World application, and to do that, I'm going to create a new XPage, and of course, I must give it a name that is prefixed with mobile. And as Paul said, I'm going to switch to the source view because it tends to be more useful in mobile application development. And the first thing I want to show you is, on the source view, all I have is my root tag for my XPage, my XP view root tag, and the XPage namespace is also defined for my core XPage controls. So what I'm going to do is add the single page application mobile control, and immediately I see that my root tag for my XPage has been updated with a new namespace for my extension library controls. Okay, so and I've added my single page application. This is my container for my entire mobile application, which can include one or several mobile pages. Now, at this point, I'm just going to add a single mobile page. And some text for that page. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I have an error. Let me format this. And the problem is that one property that you must set on your single page application control is which of your mobile pages to load first when the page is loaded. And that will obviously be my one mobile page. So the first thing I need to do is in my mobile page properties, I need to give it a page name, something that I can address it with. And I'm going to call this page 1. And then in my single page application properties, for the selected page name, the first page to load, I'm going to specify page 1. And now I'll attempt to save that. And this time it does properly compile, and I can preview my work. And I'm using Chrome, a WebKit browser, to preview my work. And I can see Hello Mobile World. And as Paul pointed out, I can do some spoofing here by switching to, by passing platform equals iPhone, to pretend to be an iPhone device and see what my mobile page looks like on an iPhone device. So that spoofing is available to you. Another option is to use the mobile simulator, and this is available in the Extension Library's demos application. And we've taken it out of there and made a few modifications so that we can preview any page. And the page that I created is mobile hello. And I can preview that, spoof that for an iPhone device, or spoof that for an Android or BlackBerry device. Okay, so very useful tool. It certainly gives you a good feeling in terms of the real estate that you're dealing with on the various devices, and obviously functionally whether or not your application is working. So certainly quick and convenient to work with. Okay, let's get into a couple of other techniques. So just want to focus on some of the other controls that are available to you, like a page heading control and a tab bar control, and some navigation that's available as well. So I'm going to extend my mobile Hello application with some of these controls. And bear with me one moment. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is remove this Hello Mobile World static text and instead, more appropriately, add a page heading to that page 1 mobile page. And the label for that heading, I'll just call it page 1. That's my home page. Okay, I'm going to just reformat this. Okay, and I'm going to add a second page, a page 2 page, so I'm going to add a second mobile page. And to that, also add a page heading. And the label for that page heading will be page 2. So one navigation technique that is available to you is right in the page heading, you can add a back button. The back property is actually the label for that back button, so I'm going to call it home. And the move to property is where to go to. And I'm going to specify page 1 as the page to go to. Okay, let me preview what I've done so far, so I'm going to save that. Okay, so I no longer see that static text that was removed. Now on page 1, I see this heading. Okay, what I need now is something on page 1 to get me to page 2. So I'm going to use the static line item control, which is typically used for that type of functionality. So here on page 1, after the heading, I'm going to add a static line item control. And the label might be something like P1 to P2. And I want to move to page 2. Okay, so that's how, spelling is important. Okay, so that's how you would provide some navigation through a static line item control. And there are also options to choose one of the available transitions like slide, fade, or flip, and also the option to add some right text in addition to your label. So I might just call this slide. Okay. And let's test out those changes. Okay, so now I have this line item control on page 1, and when I click on that, destination view was not found. Let's see where my error is. Ah, I see. Okay. I'm here in my static line item. I'm saying move to page 2, but I haven't given my second mobile page a page name. So let me go back to the properties for that second mobile page and give it a page name of page 2. And of course I meant to do that. And let's refresh. And now we get to page 2, and that's where I see my page 2 heading. And on my page 2 heading, I also added a back button, gave it the label of home, and that returns to page 1. So I could also add static line items. I could try out some of the different transitions like the slide or fade. Pretty obvious what they do. None just simply opens the next page without any sort of a transition. What I'd like to explore is a tab bar. So I'm going to add a tab bar to my page 2 page. And into that, we're going to add one tab bar button. Now, first off, for your tab bar, I have my properties for my tab bar selected, and under all properties, I need to specify the bar type of segmented control. And I need to do that to get that button look. Otherwise, I'm just going to see the actual labels of the buttons as text in a big black bar. So segmented control for my bar type for my tab bar. And for my buttons, I want to give them a label. So I'm going to give this a label of back. And then what I can do is I can code this button in the events view. Okay, so I can add a simple action. And one of the new actions under this mobile category is the move to application page. So this was made available and added to my designer when I installed the upgrade pack for designer. I can select that. I can select the target page to move to, which in this case would be page 1. And again, I can choose transition types. Let's go with a flip transition type here. You can also select a direction as well. This is an important property. Do you want to save the document? Not in this application, but the move to application page action can also be used in a mobile application to save your Domino document data source. Okay, so let me reformat that. I'll save that. And I have another error. Okay, this is a known issue. I just added an event handler and an action, the move to action, but notice the namespace for my event handler and action is XE for Extension Library. So this is a known issue. When you add an event through the events pane to a tab bar button, it sort of inherits the wrong namespace. So I'm going to have to manually change that to the correct namespace. I selected, oh, I don't want that. Let's go with this, XC, and we'll change that to XP for the XPages namespace. Okay, and I'll change that for the event handler and the action, not the actual move to action, which is an extension library action. Okay, and also on the ending tags. And let me try to save that, and now it saves without error. And if I preview that, now when I slide over to page 2, I have this new tab bar with a back button, and I can click that to take advantage of the new move to application page to move back to, in this case, page 1. Okay, so that's a quick introduction of the controls, the mobile controls that are available to you. Now what we're going to do next is see how we can use those in a Domino application. So what I have here, this is just a demo from our course, and we have a Domino view presented on one page showing my customers by name, okay, in alphabetical order, and I can click this More Customers button to see more of them. I can select the customer to open a second page in my mobile page application, and this is showing the contents of the document. So let's take a look at how to do that. Okay, a few slides before we get back into Designer. The first thing you need to know is that you cannot use a view control to render a domino view in a mobile application. It will not work. However, the Upgrade Pack does supply a data view control. Now this can be used in mobile and non-mobile applications, and that's what I'm seeing here. The use of the data view control to render a domino view, my customer by name view, in a non-mobile application. And I want to show you this in a non-mobile application because there are some features in the data view control that are not supported in a mobile application. Things like the expand collapse icon to expand a row to show some additional row details, or the show details and hide details. This will not work in a mobile application. Add more rows, that will work. We saw that a moment ago. Another thing that doesn't work well is that any additional columns in a data view, you define one summary column, and then you can define extra columns. Okay, so 2 extra columns were added to this data view. The problem with that in a mobile application, and that's what we're seeing on this screen here, this is the exact same data view showing the same customer by name view. The problem with the additional or extra columns is they show up underneath the summary column. Obviously you have limited horizontal space here, so everything gets shown underneath the summary column. Also, any row details are automatically expanded and cannot be collapsed. So you really need to question, although they work, you really need to question whether or not you're going to show additional row details or any extra columns. Things that don't work are the pager show details and hide details. That does not work. The add more rows, that will work in a mobile application. Okay, so this is kind of the goal of using a data view in our mobile application. We're not going to show any row details. We're not going to have any extra columns. Now, the procedure for doing this is first you add a mobile page to your XPage, and then what you do is you add a data view control into that mobile page and set its data source to your domino view data source. You also want to set the rows property, how many rows you want to initially show on the mobile device, and the key property to set for your data view control will be the column name property, which column you want to display as your summary column. This is showing the procedure for adding the Show More Rows button at the bottom. Basically, you add a link, and then you choose a new client-side simple action that's now available to you, the Add Rows for Data Iterator action, and we'll see how to do that now. Okay, so let me switch back to Designer. And first off, let me show you the target view. So I'm actually going to create an XPage in my Workbench application. That's where I'm set up. I've got the extension libraries enabled. I've set the mobile page prefix. I'm going to create it there, but my data source will be the customer by name view in the customer application. So let's take a look at that view. And the column that I'm going to show as my summary column will be this customer column, and the key property will be the programmatic name for that column, which happens to be customer. Okay. So let's close that. And now back in my Workbench application, I'm going to create a new XPage, must prefix it with mobile, and we're going to call it Mobile Customers. and go to the source. And once again, going to start by adding a single page application, my container for all of the mobile pages. Okay. We're going to end up with 2 mobile pages, one to display the domino view, one to display the domino documents. So let's start out with the one to display the domino view. So we'll add a mobile page. And in the properties for that, I'm going to give it the page name of view page. And in my single page application control, the page that I want to open first will be the view page. Now I'm just going to add a page heading to that view page. And specify in the label property customers by name. And bad spelling, but we'll get it right. And what I'm going to immediately do is save this and preview. Let me open up another mobile simulator page and let me load into that. Mobile customers. And that's what I'm seeing. Right now I'm seeing just the label, but functionally I've got the right architecture with my single page application and my, at this point, single mobile page. What I need to do now is add a data view control to display the appropriate domino view. And let me format this. Okay, so your data view control is available in your extension library. And just like when you add a view control, you're asked which domino view. Is it in the current or other application? And in this case, it's in the customer, another application, so I'll locate that application. And then I need to specify which view in that customer's application, and it's the customer by name view. And OK, and I'll format Control-Shift-F for a quick reformat. And I can see that I've added a data view control onto my view page, and I'm pointing to the appropriate domino view. Now, one thing you need to do in mobile applications is specify how many rows you want to display. So let's see the properties for my data view control. And I can see that by default it has an ID of data view 1, and it will default to display 30 rows, but for mobile devices, 9, depending on the mobile devices you support, 8, 9, 10 might be more appropriate. And then the last change to make is also in the data view properties and on the all properties under the format, I need to add a summary column, okay, for which column from the domino data view to display. So I add a summary column and specify the programmatic name of customer. So let me save that and let me refresh my simulator, and that's looking pretty good. I'm seeing 9 rows of that customer by name view. Okay. And I can see what it through the simulator, see what it looks like on some of the other devices as well. Now, there are more than 9 customers, so we need to add this More Customers button, and to do that, now this you add using the core link control, and it's easiest to do it on the Design tab and in the editable area next to the pager bottom. Now this is a known issue. I seem to have lost my editable area. I should see a green dot beside pager bottom. The workaround for this is to close and then reopen the X page. And there it is. I can see that I now have an editable area to drop in other controls. And to create a More Customers button, I drop in a core link control into the pager bottom. And I give it an appropriate label, like More Customers. And then I code this. I code its on-click event, and there's a new client-side simple action. And it's the first one in my all list, the add rows to a data iterator. So my data view is a data iterator. I can use this to create an add rows pager. I specify which data iterator this is for, and it's for my data view 1. Data view. Now, disabled ID, this is good to set as well. And I'm going to set that to my actual link that I've just added here to itself. Basically, it'll disable the link, hide the button when there are no more rows to display. So let's save that and refresh. And on my BlackBerry device, I have a More Customers button, and in my not device, but in my iPhone simulator, I have a More Customers button, and I can click on that to scroll through. Of course, I'd be pressing that in an actual device. And when I get to the end of my data set, I no longer see that More Customers button. So that's how you set that up. Okay, next step. We need to provide another mobile page that'll be open when the user presses one of these view entries in the data view. So let's go on to that. Okay, a couple of slides here before we get back into Designer. To display a domino document on a mobile page, first you add a mobile page control specifically for that purpose. You add a domino document data source to that mobile page, and one way to do that is to add a panel inside your mobile page. You can define a data source for a panel. So first add the panel into the mobile page and then define a domino document data source. And then on your view mobile page, you need to, much like you would in a non-mobile XPage application, you need to specify which page to open when the document is selected from the view. Okay, so let's take a look at that in Designer. Okay, so back in Designer here, and first let me format this. Just going to add a comment here, end of view page, and start of document page. Okay, this is going to begin to expand beyond a few screens here. So just a couple of visual cues as to where we're at. So we need to add a mobile page to display the document data. So that's the first step. And we're going to give it a page name of document page. I like to consistently use view page and document page. You can parcel out components of your mobile application into custom controls, and that can be quite useful for reusing code. Okay, another thing, let me reformat this. And let's get this down a few lines. Okay, another important property to set for your document page is reset content to true. The default is false, so you must set it to true for this type of application. Otherwise, the first document that the user will open will continue to open whenever they select a new document from the view. So you want to reset the content on this mobile page every time it's used. Okay, we're going to add a heading to this page with the label of customer info. And in that heading, we're going to add a back button. This one we'll call back, and we'll move to our view page when that is pressed. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm ready to add my data source for my document page. Okay, so we can define a data source in a panel control. So I'm going to add to my document page a panel control. And on the Data tab for the panel, going to add a Domino document data source. And this is to another application. And I'm going to navigate and select that customer's application once again and choose the appropriate form, which is the customer form. Okay, so now we have a panel with a Domino document data source defined for that on my mobile page. And now I need to add controls to display the contents of that Domino field. Now, before I add the actual controls, and I can add them from the data palette now that I defined a Domino data source. But before I do that, I'm going to add from my mobile palette one of these, a rounded list control. And I'll add my labels and field display controls within that rounded list control, just a convention for your mobile applications. So now from my data palette, I can select which fields from my data source I want to display, and I'll just select some of these, not all, and drag them inside of that rounded list control. And now this might be easier to view on the Design tab. So on the Design tab, I can see my first mobile page to display my Domino view, my second mobile page. Within that, I have a page heading. I have a rectangular rounded list. And now I've added from the data palette this table of labels and controls. So my Customer 1 control on the Data tab, I can see that that is bound to the customer field in my data source. The City 1 control is bound to the city field in the document data source, and so on, just as it would be if you were developing a non-mobile application. Okay, so that is the extent of what I need to do on the document page. But now I need to return to the view page and specifically the properties for the data view, to specify which page to open when a selection is made in the data view. So to do that, I can go to the data view properties just as I would for a view control, and at runtime open selected document using, and in this case I called it document page. Okay. And one more change, and for this one I'll have to go to the all properties. And I'm going to set open docs as read-only to true. That's not the default, but certainly appropriate for this application where we're developing a read-only application at this point. Okay, so I've saved that, and let's see how that works out. I'm going to refresh my page in the simulator. And this is new, so I can now press on any of these. And I didn't quite get the result that I wanted here. Okay. Yes, I should be seeing, well, that back button's working well, but I should be seeing that. I'm going to have to clear my cache and restart my browser. So I will fix that, and I'll get back to this in a moment. Basically, we've got one problem here. I know what the issue is. I'm going to come back to it, but let me come back to this after Howard's done some demonstrations. Now, before I go on and release this to Howard, I want to cover just very quickly, at this point I've been talking about a read-only application, but certainly in some cases you want to mobilize the create and update functionality as well. So which core controls are supported in mobile application? Your edit box controls are supported, including the validators and converters. The exception is the edit box date time type of control. So you can have an edit box date time control, but do not use the date picker. It will not render in your mobile devices. Considerations for the selection controls: yes, they all will render in your mobile devices. However, your radio button and checkbox controls take up a lot of space, so you probably want to use a combination of the combo box and list box controls instead. They consume very little space even when they are showing dozens or even hundreds of options. And what I'm seeing here is on my iPhone device, the pinwheel control to select one or another customer name. Now, rich text controls are not supported in mobile applications and will basically cause a runtime error if you add them to a mobile page. So what do you do about that? Well, for new documents, you can provide the user with a multi-line edit box control, and they can enter in multiple lines of text, but that's what it will be, just text. For existing documents, you can bind a computed input control to your rich text field in your existing documents, and it will render correctly. But what you cannot do is a combination of bind or add a multi-line edit box control and a computed field control, one rendered when the document is editable, one when it's not editable, and then edit the contents using the multi-line control. The problem there is it will be converted to text and you will lose any rich formatting or any rich content at that point. Okay, I'm going to pass this over to Howard. I will come back to once I've debugged this. It requires a bit of restarting. But Howard, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
And you're seeing my screen. Okay, to go through a couple demos, and actually while Paul's debugging it, his app, one of the things I'll show you is kind of the completed app here. And let's wait for this to load. Okay, so this is the completed app. We made a couple of changes here, but you see we have our pager to give us more customers. And when we look at this in the Android, it has the Android look and feel, kind of a white on black theme. And the BlackBerry is kind of similar to the iPhone appearance. Let's go back to the iPhone. What I wanted to kind of point out here is in the heading we did add a button, and we used the plus sign character, and that's going to create a new document where we can enter a new document. Allow the person to do that through the mobile device. And since Paul didn't show this to you, I'll also click on an existing document, and you see that we do have some buttons up here to switch into edit mode. And I can save that or cancel it. Or I can cancel or close, which does the same as the back button. But one thing that doesn't look good is this plus sign in the button. It's just kind of ugly. It's kind of small. So let's look at, just give you a real quick, one of the possibilities is we can use some CSS to style that and make it look a little bigger and a little more prominent and a little easier for our fat fingers to click on that plus sign, which is going to create a new customer. And I'm not going to go into all the details on how we do it, but real quick, I'll just show you a couple things in Designer. Again, here's our plus button in the heading, and we really got to go into the source view to do anything with these mobile controls. And what we have is our button, and we have it inside a div, and then we conditionally style this for an Android versus the iPhone. So we actually have a little bit of code that checks to see if it is an Android type device, and if so, we're using the mobile new button underscore Android class. Otherwise, we use the mobile new button class. And those classes have the styling we need to make that button look big and nice and easier to press. Okay, so another control that we didn't get a chance to talk to, but I'll mention, and this is like the data view, in that it is a control that and when this control is used on a mobile device, it is formatted nicely. So they reformat the outline control to look good in a mobile device. And here's one example of it where we have a container type node, and everything in the outline is called a node. So we have a container node that then can have other, in this case it goes to another page, a mobile page at page 2. And we have two basic tree nodes is what they're called. And so let's look at that in Designer. And here's the way in the design pane. So we'll go over to the source, and the outline tag or outline control is here. And outline controls have nodes in them. And you can actually work with these in the All Properties view. So if you look at the bottom in the All Properties, you see that I have my basic container node, which was called Menu 1. And then we had child nodes, and we had two child nodes. In this case, they were a basic leaf node. And we have our mobile page that's going to open and a label. And these, this outline control can have many different types of nodes. Some of the ones that are more interesting to us is a domino view entries tree node that will have all the entries from a view, or a domino view list tree node that will list all the views in a database. We also have a repeat tree node, and if you worked with the repeat control, this is similar. The repeat tree node will repeat anything that is that's contained inside of it. So let's look at one use of a little more advanced use of the outline control, and that is here we have a 4 basic container nodes, and inside each one of them we have a view that shows us all the customers inside the north region. So what we did was use one outline, and in this outline we have a container node with our region showing you the north label or south or east or west, and inside that we have our view tree node, view entries tree node, and each one of those goes to a certain view that's categorized by the region, and we use a property here to say only show me the documents that are in that one category, in this case the north category. So that's some of the things you can do with the outline control. It is makes it very versatile. However, it's not a replacement for the data view control because there is no paging capability. You can't set up a pager. Text searching. So here we have in our mobile devices we can search for, let's say I want to find everyone who's in Atlanta. I don't want to type it out, so I just type in ATL asterisk, and I check my full text searching, and it found 2 customers. And the way we set that up is we have a custom control, and I'll open up just that custom control. And in the custom control, again I'll switch to the source view, we have a fair amount of CSS. Again, we are doing different kind of styling depending on the device. So if it's an Android device, we use a certain class for our div tag. And inside that div tag is a couple other divs that have some inline styling. And then we have our input control where the user is going to type in what they want to search for. And again, we have that conditionally styled depending on the device. And then finally, we have our button that uses an icon graphic, but we do style that in a depending on the device again, bring in different classes depending on our device. So while the controls and the mobile controls, for the most part, take care of those device differences for you, when you want to get into some more advanced things, you will often need to create your own style sheets that will be unique for each type of device. And that's one of the things we kind of go into a little more detail in our course. Okay, so that's the demos. Paul, are you online here?
I'm back.
Do you want to finish up your part and we'll get into the Q&A?
Yes, I think I found it.
Okay, I will make you the presenter. Looks like you made yourself the presenter. Okay.
Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. Found it. And to see where the problem is, and by the way, Howard, you were right. So Howard actually caught this one. But let me preview this outside of the mobile simulator. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. When I preview this outside of the mobile simulator, I am seeing on what should be my view page, I'm seeing my data source. Okay, so I'm seeing that all on my view page and on my document page. And the reason for that is that where I defined the panel is outside of my document page. So I kind of missed the end tag on that one. So let me move that end tag to after the panel. And reformat. save. And then, well, we'll try it in our simulator. We'll refresh that customer page. And now when I select from the domino view, I'm actually seeing the content for that selected document. That's the Atlantic City. And if I select Dusty Road, I'll see Dusty Road. And of course, on my mobile page for my document page, I set the reset content to true. Otherwise, I'd keep seeing the same document over and over again. Okay, so thanks very much for pointing that out, whichever attendee passed that on, and thanks, Howard, for passing that on. But
that was Anna. Anna, thank you for your help.
Okay, so I guess we're at the point for any questions, are we, Howard?
Yes, we are. Time for questions. So please post your questions into the questions pane, and then we will respond to those either in the questions pane or most likely verbally. So right now we have one question from Nathan having to do with security. And Nathan's question is, when reading and editing data, what access does the user have? Anonymous, can they log in? Yes, whatever you do in Domino, whatever you do in a regular XPages, it still applies on mobile. There's all the security rules still apply. So users can log in, they have to log in. If Anonymous doesn't have the ability to do what you want them to do, whether it's reading or editing or whatever. And the roles, ACL roles, would still apply as well. So it's just Domino. That's a nice thing, about XPages and about now the mobile XPages. All that great security is still there. All the people were asking about the presentations. We will send out the presentations to you. There will be a link in the after webinar email, and we are hoping to have the recording of this presentation as well, and that will be in your email, barring any technical issues with GoToWebinar. Paul, you want to do the next question?
I just got it up and running.
Okay, I can do it.
I've got one here. A question from Paul, not one of the panelists. Will the TLCC mobile course work with an 8.5.3 server? In fact, the course is designed to run locally, and all you need is Domino Designer. So it is not meant to, and it will not install and work properly on a server. However, to use any of this functionality, both Designer and your server must be at 8.5.3 and the upgrade pack installed.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Let me grab another question. First of all, someone else asked this as well as Mimi. Hi, Mimi. Does this apply to iPad as well as the iPhone? And yes, it really doesn't matter. Again, keep in mind these are mobile web browser apps. So if you have the iPad and you brought up some of the native iPhone apps in your iPad, and you get that small little screen with the option to go 2x, make it 2 times bigger, and then it doesn't really look good. And
Howard,
they will resize.
You faded out for your last sentence.
Okay. Basically, the iPad apps will work the same. They will be bigger because it is a mobile web browser. Okay. Paul, you want to get the next one?
Yeah, there's another question about the course. Is it instructor-led? It is self-paced. We do have instructor-led online for our other XPages courses. Not sure whether or not what our plans are in terms of providing instructor-led for our brand new mobile XPages courses, but certainly something we're considering.
Yeah, if you're interested in instructor-led for the mobile discourse, drop us a note, sales@tlcc.com, and we'll keep you in mind. And if we get enough people, we'll run the course. Okay, let's take another question. Ovi, hopefully I'm not pronouncing your name wrong. Can the mobile controls be used in traditional XPages? Not really. Depends on what control. I mean, we did talk about the outline control and the data view control. Those are not mobile specific, so you can use those. But the other ones are really designed for mobile use.
I don't. Yeah, let me try that one, Howard. You know, I tried a couple of them, and the one that I thought would have worked was the static line item, but it didn't seem to work without that container single page application control.
Right, and that brings up another discussion we had in the questions. There is no real theme you have to apply here, because that container, that single page application, that's going to...
Oh, Howard, you faded out for your last sentence.
Okay. I said that you don't have to worry about picking a theme for mobile. That is all done for you automatically by virtue of using that single page mobile application tag. And from that point on, the upgrade pack will handle the right styling and everything.
Question from Patrick: do we need to remove the DojoX mobile files we install with the OpenNTF Extension Library? You certainly need to uninstall the OpenNTF Extension Library before you can install the upgrade pack. Whether or not you can leave a couple of DojoX mobile files, maybe style sheets, not certain, but the approach that I took, and one that's certainly recommended, is delete all existence of the OpenNTF Extension Library before installing your upgrade pack.
Yeah, and I can reinforce that, Paul. It's anytime you've got carryover from one design environment to the other, we've just seen lots of issues. So it's better to make sure that you've cleaned up your design environment, gotten rid of everything, and then install a clean version of the upgrade pack and move forward with your development from there. Or keep two separate virtual machines. Have a virtual machine with the OpenNTF stuff, then create another virtual machine that's just your mobile development using the upgrade pack.
Okay, and just to make sure there's no confusion on that with Patrick's question, any Dojo type controls that comes with Domino 853, not the extension pack, you don't have to do anything with. It's just if you had installed the extension before you install Upgrade Pack 1, you must remove the extension library, and that's in the instructions. Michelle asked about workflow and XPages apps. Yes, it's Domino's all about workflow. Many XPages apps are about workflow, and now you can mobilize your workflow. So, of course, you can do whatever you want. You're designing the app. There's also a couple questions about the demos and about our sample application. Our sample application we won't make available. That's part of our course, and it really isn't just a one test app that you saw today, but quite a few XPages, quite a few dozen, if not more. But in terms of demos, in the Upgrade Pack 1, there is a template called the Discussion XL, and there's actually two templates. The other one's the Team Room XL. And those are templates, obviously the discussions and in Team Room, that have been extended for the Upgrade Pack controls, including a mobile. So there are some, if you want to call them demos in there, I will warn you they are fairly complex, and I've spent many, many hours going through them, trying to distill them. It's not, starting from the basics. The other place you can get a demo is, I think you have to actually download, but don't install, assuming you want to use the upgrade pack, the extension library, because that comes with a database that is demos, and part of that, one of those XPages is a mobile application. So that is something you can either install the whole extension library. Remember, you then won't be able to use the upgrade pack that's officially supported by IBM, or you can just download that and get that one NSF out of the zip file that it comes in.
Okay. Question from Dwayne. when Paul created the tab bar, he entered the value segmented control. For the tab bar, where do you find the choices that can be used? That's a good question, Dwayne. There's very limited documentation. It is available at the wiki. And there's also some documentation that's available from the extension library, available through OpenNTF. But that particular property, the bar type property, and the choices are not documented. In fact, what you'll find when you go through the documentation, either at the wiki or through OpenNTF, is you'll find that there are property names. Most of the properties will be listed, but not any default or not any values that you can set to them. Certainly that was the status up to about a week ago, but we're hoping for improved documentation down the road.
Yeah, basically the documentation is pretty non-existent, which is why we created the course, to help people get started. There are some other quick questions. Bob asked about the vote.
Oh, you're fading again there, Howard. Just pause for a moment. Oh, I think Howard is. Are you back, Howard?
I think so. I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, you were gone for a good long time there.
Okay. Bob asked device hardware, and again, these are mobile web browser applications. So the mobile web browser can't really do the camera. However, there is a library built into mobile browsers to get location information and find out where you are, and then you can put that up on a Google map or something. So that's probably the only hardware that I've heard of that comes with the standard web browser type devices. That is not supported directly in the mobile controls, but if you do a Google search, you can find the JavaScript that they use to get their location. It's pretty simple, actually.
A question from Nathan, and I'm going to put this out to the other panelists. Do all of the databases that are providing data sources for the mobile applications need to be on the same Domino server? I think they do.
I'll take that one, Paul.
Yeah.
Because it's underneath, it's just an XPages application. If you have a data source in the XPage applications that's serving the mobile stuff, it can have a data source that points to any other database on the same server. It can also point to a data source that's living on another Domino server, as long as two things are true. The Domino server is accessible over the wire, and those two Domino servers have a trust relationship. Then it can be on another server. So the scenario he was asking about there is valid.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Hey, Paul, while you're answering questions, Anna asked about, she didn't understand the bit about offline applications. You want to quickly recap that?
Okay, so the offline capabilities are about storing some data or maybe possibly all of the data on the local device itself. Obviously, native applications have the ability to use the local store, but then using SQLite as well as the HTML5 capabilities, then you can also store information from the mobile web applications on the device itself as well. Typically we don't try to replicate like we would do like in a traditional notes application, but it's great for storing information like preferences or any type of properties or parameters, and then possibly a small subset of data that you want to make available to the application while it's quote-unquote offline. So definitely, again, that capability exists for both mobile web applications, but predominantly used for native applications.
Now we're a little over time, but maybe we'll stay on for another 5 minutes for as long as folks want to stay on. And of course, you don't all have to stay on. But I've got a question from Mika, and I'll start it out, but anyone else chime in. Will Windows smartphones also be supported? Nokia, Lumia, etc. So the official word that I saw is that, and this is at the wiki, is that the mobile controls available in the upgrade pack have been tested on the iPhone devices and Android devices. BlackBerry wasn't mentioned, although I think that you can rely on that support for your BlackBerry devices that do have an appropriate size screen. Anyone else want to?
Yeah, my understanding there was basically any WebKit-based browser. That the prerequisite is that it actually be a WebKit-based browser, which obviously is the iDevices. Chrome has the WebKit, Firefox has the WebKit built into it, which is why we can do the spoofing there. I'll be honest that I don't know anything about the Windows mobile devices and what type of browser they have. But if it is a WebKit-based browser, then yeah, these should be render fine in those browsers as well.
Okay. We had a question from Kendall about rich text, and you can display rich text on your mobile device because that gets rendered, as HTML in an XPage, regardless of whether it's mobile or not. But the trouble is in mobile devices with the mobile controls that there is no control to edit the rich text or create the rich text. What IBM is using, much of what you've seen on the mobile devices is from Dojo X, and they do have a rich text editor for mobile devices in the 1.7 version, but that's not used by the IBM mobile controls. They're using 1.6. So I would imagine that the rich text editing issue will go away in a future release of the upgrade pack or extension library once they start using the 1.7 release. But for now, you can only display rich text. You can't edit it because of the lack of control to do that.
Question from Bob. It's a follow-up question to accessing data sources in other databases on other Domino servers. Do those other Domino servers, if they're just serving up the data sources, need to be 8.5.3?
No.
I don't think so.
No, as long as they have the trust relationship, basically it's like a client connection into a server to server, but a client connection into that data store. You're just reading the data at that point. So as long as the server has access to the other server via the server trust, and then that server also has access to the data, in the ACL, then it'll work just fine.
Okay. Had another question about the simulators and what you get in the SDKs from Nathan. So as Paul Calhoun mentioned, there's a couple ways to test. You can just use a browser and spoof it with the URL parameter. You could use the simulator that we did most of our demos with, which we got from the extension library with some changes. The second best way to test would be to get the simulators from either Apple or Google, which is Android, and those will be a lot closer to what the look and feel of your application will be. Obviously, the best way to test is to use the real device. So, when you say simulator, there's a couple of different meanings to that, because you could have the simulator from the SDK, from the device manufacturer, or you could have the just be simulating it in a browser on your desktop. And finally, there's also third-party simulators for Apple. If you do a Google search for iPhone simulator or Android simulator, you can find many others, some of which you can buy, some of which are even free. We haven't really used too many of those. Another question, Praveen was asking about migration and moving. It looks like you have a lot of Notes apps that you want to move to XPages. You want to check out GBS has a product called the Transformer. It's a service, I should say, where they'll come in and run your native Notes apps through their Transformer and leave you with an XPages app. So that's something you might want to check out if you have a lot of apps to migrate. There were also a lot of questions about our courses, and please just send us an email, sales@tlcc.com, and be glad to respond to any questions about our courses.
Question from Badya. How much control do we have to hide the specific nodes, mobile nodes, within a mobile application? You have the rendered property for all of the controls, and specifically probably what you're thinking of, or the application is, if you add a tab bar and several tab bar buttons, you would only want the edit button rendered for those who can edit the document. You can certainly do that through the rendered property. Now, something that is very useful that comes with the upgrade pack is the user bean, which provides immediate, kind of like a global object, like the context object, but for the current user, and it provides, it has properties like, what the user's full name is, whether or not they can create documents, whether or not they can delete documents, so it will fish out those privileges from the application, specifically from the access control list. So that is, on its own, worth the price of admission for upgrading to the upgrade pack.
Thanks for watching. To engage in conversations with us, visit twitter.com/gbsknows. To stay up to date, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/joingbs. And to watch entertaining and informative videos, visit youtube.com/gbsknows. And don't forget, visit our website and send us an email at gbs.com and info@gbs.com. Thanks again.